taxpayer on the hook for this? Joining me now is the president of the National Taxpayers Union, Pete Sepp. So basically, Kamala Harris wants to use the tax base to sort of stick it to these corporate landlords. And again, when you're talking about BlackRock, is there any space between Joe Biden and BlackRock? I don't think so.
Yeah, precious little space, and unfortunately, precious little forethought to the idea of further involving government in the housing sector. It's important to understand just how much government already does in housing right now. Between Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Federal Housing Administration, other agencies, the government is already guaranteeing through taxpayers something on the order of $10 trillion in mortgage liabilities. And we have the tax problem. You know, I recently gave comments to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. They were all upset about how closing costs have increased, and they're looking for junk fees as the problem behind it. Something like credit report fees or title insurance, everything the mean old private sector does to boost the costs of owning a home. Well, it turns out, according to Core Logic, that 44% of the average closing cost, which is about $6,900, consists of taxes. State-level transfer taxes, local document recordation taxes, property taxes. If they want to do something about home affordability, they need to look in the mirror and start reducing taxes and regulations.
It's also, you know, I bought my first home when I was 36. I'm still in that home and I'm 52. Before that, I was a renter, and our landlord was taking a risk on me. And I'd have to come up with first month, last month, 1 month security, because if I trash the place, they're not going to eat the cost. When the government gives away housing and you can't evict anyone, I ask this question all the time: show me the nice government housing.
Right, exactly. Or show me price-controlled, rent-controlled housing that's actually in good condition. I mean, the incentive or disincentive, if you want to call it that, is right there for the landlord. If they can't collect enough rent to recover their costs, what are they going to do? They're going to try and artificially lower their costs to match the rent they can collect. What's the first thing they're going to look for? Well, they can't reduce their property tax burdens on the apartment building or whatever they own. They're just not going to fix it up anymore. And the quality of the housing starts to go down. That's what government price controls do, and that's what government permitting and other regulations do. It was the National Association of Home Builders that recently said something on the order of $95,000 of the typical $395,000 home, that's the median, consists of regulatory burdens and costs imposed by governments, like on labor agreements or materials regulations. All of those things add up, and you pile on the taxes on that too. That's why we're having a housing shortage right now.
Also add in, you know, when President Trump was president, inflation was like 1.4%. Rents were 20% lower, and interest rates were also much lower. So Kamala Harris keeps talking about the new way forward and turning the page, except she's pushing the same old plans.
Yeah, exactly. More kinds of tax credits with strings attached to them, maybe even refundable ones that aren't really tax credits. They're spending in the tax code. Or she's going to propose more kinds of federal subsidies to build housing, again, not concentrating on the fact that building housing is more expensive because of government. So why not go to the source and start attacking that part of the problem? About the only part of her plan that makes some sense is to try and divest some of the federal government land and buildings that are no longer in use right now. Great idea. We've had that idea, though, for the past 30 years, and we haven't seen movement on it. Maybe if Kamala Harris said she's finally going to light a fire under the bureaucracy and get those properties into private sector hands, I'd believe her.
Right. She's going to take on the bureaucracies. That's what Democrats do. They take on the bureaucracies. All right, Pete. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.